So welcome to another episode of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't feel it. I am Michelle Portier, the host of the hour, and I am here with a very special guest who I had the honor and pleasure of sharing a platform with as we highlighted last month, freedom from trauma. And so those of you that follow me know that we specialize in highlighting and bringing to the forefront those that have encountered great adversities in their lives, but they turn those adversities into triumphs, and they've turned their pains into power, and now they have created a platform or a venue or a service that they provide to their community to impact and empower others, to let them know that no matter how bad the things that they encountered were, that there is life after trauma, there is life after adversity, and that they can continue to live an abundant life and thrive. So without further ado, I want to bring to the forefront and introduce to you my very dear confidant and collaborative warrior championing those that have encountered adversities, Miss Sara. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is just wonderful. I'm loving being here with you this morning. What a great way to start Thursday.
Isn't it? Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And so I had the honor of hearing a portion of Sara's journey as we were, sharing on a call after we had been a part of this summit. And I was so blown away and so moved by how strong and resilient she is and how she's turned that around, and she's helping others, men and women, who have had some challenging things and some things that would have taken people out. And she has turned that into her power. And so, Sara, for my listening audience, share with us, who is Sara personally, professionally, especially?
The whole thing. It's interesting because I that's always the question that people ask, like, who are you? And right. I was just on a trail for 22 days. I'm a lover of nature. And I was on a trail for 22 days, hiking the John Muir Trail through August and September. And when you're on the trail, you're given a trail name. And when I was on the trail, the given trail name to me was Layers. And the reason that they gave me layers is they said, being on the trail with you for this long, it's interesting how many layers you have on the inside, and also how many layers that you also wear, like metaphorically, on the outside to keep myself warm and safe and everything else. So there are a lot of layers to me. And I used to be a little bit scared of that, and a little bit maybe even ashamed of that. And now I want to start with that, because as you listen to this, I also want you to just reflect on your own life, and how many layers do you have that also want to come off within you, right? Where we want to get down to the core of who we are. My trauma started at 17. I was raped by somebody that I knew, and I became pregnant as a result. I had police that wouldn't press charges because they didn't believe me. Because the police didn't believe me, the town really didn't. There were so many people in my town. I lived in a very small village in Wisconsin, and they didn't. There were people that just simply didn't believe me. My voice wasn't heard. And I decided at that young age to keep my son. I birthed him, and then I also chose to bring him home and to raise him. I did it without really telling my family that that was what I wanted, that's what my intention was, until after I gave birth. And the reason why is because I learned, unfortunately, at that age, that the first person, I learned two things. Something that was very fortunate with me was that the first person that you have to believe in is yourself, right? And so that was a very big lesson that I learned at 17. And then, unfortunately, the other lesson I learned was that not everybody is going to believe you at all times. And with that, you also do have to believe in yourself. Something I share in the book that I don't think that I've shared with you yet is that, unfortunately, also there were so many traumas that happened because it was society didn't believe me, the police didn't believe me, and then also the social worker that I was working with at the time, she was supposed to be in my benefit, had planned to adopt my son out behind my back. And so Yeah. So then we get institutional trauma on top of that. I had to make phone calls to different people and tell them, you're not taking my son. Like this, I'm 17 and yet I have the right to take my child home. So I had to fight a lot back then, just for myself. Now, fast forward, I'm 40 years old. I married my best friend, and I can say that with a big smile on my face. When I was 21, he literally was. I fell in love with this guy overnight. He was an amazing human being. And then at the age of 40, 17 years into our marriage, I found out they had been betraying me for 14 of those years with men. And I literally found out my discovery was one night, Thanksgiving Eve, 2013. And it was devastating. I mean, not only because I watched my marriage implode and my family implode, but also I watched him in so much pain. And my best friend couldn't come to me and have these conversations with me of what his inner turmoil was like. I found out that he had been literally living a double life and was addicted to drugs, alcohol, and sex. And over the course of 5 days, I had my disclosure, not professionally done, mind you, but literally between he and myself. I do not recommend that. I recommend professional disclosures. But for me, I think that the reason why is because I had so much of what happened to me at 17 come full force. And that subconscious, that 17-year-old girl just came out and was like, we know what to do because we've been here before. And it's also re-triggering the pain from my past. And we know how to walk through this because we've been here. And so, but then of course I go right back to who's going to believe me now. If I start speaking my truth, it's this whole like pulling back from my 17, who's going to believe me? And this whole, was it really your fault? Because I was questioned so much back at 17. Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you run? Why were you there? And so
you were made to feel like it was partly your fault, it sounds like.
1,000%. Yeah. And when I then, through my healing journey, through my healing recovery at 40, I'm now 47, I went back to a lot of the tools. Thank you. I am so happy, by the way. I want everybody to I just want everybody to understand, you will find so much joy and happiness outside of your pain if you walk through your journey, right? You have to, that's why my book is called Walk Through This, like literally. And there's a reason for that. I'll get to that. But walking through your journey and your pain can bring so much freedom, joy, and peace. And if I can do this, trust me, okay? I've lived through a lot. There are other people, all of us have the opportunity to do the same thing. For me though, when I was going through this, I knew that I didn't want to sit in it. I don't sit in pain very well. I mean, I sit there, right? But I don't hold on to it. It's so toxic for me. And I love laughter and I love joy and I love life. And I love living. And I also have 3 sons. What's that?
I said you sit there, but you don't dwell there.
I don't dwell there. And I also have 3 sons. I had 2 more sons with my husband. And so I also wanted to, I knew that this was an opportunity for them to watch how you can move through your difficult times in life and not let them define you, because they're leaders in what they do as well. And they're amazing kids. And I did it for them. Now, moving into my recovery, I also utilized nature so much because that was my go-to. Like I was born and raised in a small village, a farming community back in Wisconsin. And I knew, like, go run the fields, I was an artist back then too. I still am, but different form. Go, focus on the details of life, right? Like watch a spider, take your shoes off and just allow yourself to be grounded with the spiritual nature of Mother Nature, right? And so I did that, and I would grab my paddleboard and I would paddle 4 miles out to the Pacific Ocean and sit with whales and dolphins and just literally, and I kid you not, I would look in their eye and I would see God's presence and the spiritual nature of the world. And I realized I am so much more than I am my pain, right? And there's so much more out there. And so I climbed mountains, and I went into the Grand Canyon, and that was my space. Now, when people hear that, they're like, well, I can't go paddle 4 miles offshore. I can't, but it's not about that. It's about literally allowing yourself to be with the presence of nature outside, and allowing yourself to get outside the four walls and outside of our own mind and drop into your heart, because that's where everything is connected. And so that's that's me in a nutshell. There's so much more, as we know, and I could go on and on and on. And that's the basis.
Something that I resonated with what you said, Sarah. What I resonated with is that how you said you wanted to you love laughter, you love life, you love joy, and that you're so much more than your pain, and how you really connected with nature. Because something I've always said is that there's such a healing quality in nature that nothing else can mimic. No amount of therapy, no amount of meds, to suppress things, the memories that you have that you really need to confront to be able to work through. But just how you just chose to embrace it, work through it, and move through it, and not allow it to conquer you or to defeat you or overtake you. And so in having those experiences, I know that's part of what has shaped you into the phenomenal woman that you've become. So take us through the journey of how that shaped you, and how those experiences molded you into what you're doing today and what you're offering for others.
So I had so many spiritual moments. I do today. I mean, I still do. I mean, I have spiritual moments when I'm out there every day. And the thing, how it formed me was because I realized, like I said, like you don't have to go stand on a summit to connect with something so much greater than who we are. Right. And when we're allowing ourselves to open to that, to open our heart up to that, that is when we have these just moments of absolute peace, that we can feed that light within us and not the darkness of the pain that we have been sitting in. I'll share with you, there's so many. I'm like literally like, oh, there's this one. I'll give you two. I'll give you two that are really actually the most phenomenal experiences that I've had. I was 4 miles, literally paddled 4 miles offshore. And I was in this moment. I was like, my intention I always put an intention out before I go and do something. If it's even going for a walk, like walking my dog, what's my intention for this? Right. And my intention for that paddling 4 miles out that day was to release the anger, because I was so angry at this situation. And I was angry at my husband at the time, and his friends that knew about this, and the people, his lovers. I was just so mad. I'd rage. And so I was paddling really hard out into the ocean, and I got 4 miles out there, and I looked up, and there was this massive fog bank that was right in front of me, and it surrounded me. It literally came in and it surrounded me, and I couldn't see 10 feet from my face. And so I was sitting there going, well, what am I going to do now? Like, great, I'm going to get run over by a boat, And I had this moment, right? And my head started spinning, and I thought, no, time out. And I was like, drop into your heart, allow yourself to be one with the ocean. You know how to get to where you need to be. Tap into that space within you. And so I flipped my board around, and I followed the current and the wave, and I talked to God, and I said, I need guidance here. Can you get me back to the harbor, which is where I put my board in? And about 1.5 miles, 2 miles out, these dolphins came out of nowhere. And they started swimming around my board, and I started talking to the dolphins, and I said, can you please take me to, and I'm like laughing out here. I'm like, this is hilarious. I can't see 2 feet, and these dolphins, and I said, could you take me to the harbor? And they literally swam with me, took me to the harbor. And I remember looking up, and it was right there. And I had this realization of, you have everything you need inside of you to get you to where you need to go. Everything is here. You have everything. You've been given the gift. So allow yourself to tap into the intuition and listen. Just simply freaking listen to yourself, because your overcoming will come from within. And so I pulled my board up that onto the dock that day, and I was like, wow, that's all I needed. That's all I needed. We all have that inner warrior. We all have that peace within us.
Right.
And then the other time was I was standing on a peak. I was standing on this rock, and I talk about it in my TED Talk. I was standing on this rock, and I was looking out into the valley below, and I had this, like, I could start crying just even thinking about it. I looked up, and there was these birds that swooped out of nowhere. And I remember there were two birds, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I didn't want my relationship to end. I didn't want my marriage to end. I didn't want my family to be imploded. And I knew that I had to. I knew that I had to step out of it and let him go and allow myself to find who I am. And these two birds came out of nowhere and just swooped right over top of me. And it was this like realization that, you know, we can form whatever relationships we need to in life. We can co-parent. It's okay. And I looked out into the valley and I realized that I am so small in this world, and yet one person can make such a big impact. And that when you look out, there is no end. There is no end, right? Like, you see these beautiful trees, and the view of what you have, it doesn't stop there. It just keeps going. So it was just this reminder of, like, you can let him go and create whatever it is that needs to get created. And that was my moment. You will find forgiveness.
Yeah.
You will find forgiveness.
That is so beautiful, the way that you describe that. Because I think one of the greatest challenges that many of us encounter is, one, honestly expressing the anger that we feel when we experience things. And you just tapped right into it. You experienced it, you expressed it, and then you tapped within. And the second thing that really resonated with me that you said was the letting go. When you came to the point of realizing that you had to let go and you had the ability to let go, because that's another thing that I believe is so challenging. You know, when you encounter adversity or trauma, one, it's hard for you to acknowledge and even accept and to express the anger. But two, no matter how bad it is, sometimes we just have this thing where we don't want to let go because letting go feels like failure. And so did you experience that feeling of failure? And then what was it like when you really felt the release within that, you know, like, okay, this is not what I want. This is not what I desire. This is not what I signed up for. But I know that in order for me to live and to not be overtaken by this, that I have to let go. So what can you describe what that felt like, and then what it felt like when you heard the word forgiveness?
You know, it's interesting because everybody, and I kid you not, almost everybody encountered told me I need to be actually more angry. They would tell me, why aren't you more angry? And I just thought that was so interesting, because through my own process of forgiveness, I realized people don't want to let go because they put power in the anger. And in the anger, it's a reminder that you did me wrong and I'm not going to let you get away with doing me wrong. And I don't view it that way. I view the power and the triumph in the allowing myself to let go and of the pain and the anger and everything else, and realizing that I am the creator of my own life, right? Like, I can create my own life how I choose. We can't, the things that happen to us, we have no control over, right? But it's about what I can do with that. And so I am the creator of my own relationship with him. And so in letting go, I received, right? Because then I can also then create a relationship that works. But also in letting go, I'm actually allowing myself to have a better, more intimate relationship with myself, because my energy isn't going towards something that it takes two people to actually work on. One person cannot fix what it takes two people to work on. And I knew that I had to go back to me in order to create something with him. So I didn't look at it as failure. I looked at it as, this is so powerful to be able to step into letting go of all the anger and the pain and all the things that people kept telling me, why aren't you holding on to that? I don't understand. I still have people that are
Mhm.
like, I just don't get it. And I'm like, you don't have to get it. This is my life. So, you know, like I get it.
Right.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. And I get it. I totally resonate with what you're saying. When I finally divorced my ex-husband, and people are like, why are you talking to him? Why are you supporting him? Why are you, why are you, why, how could you forgive? But it was a release for me, to
Yeah.
forgive. If I, holding on to it was killing me, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, literally, it was killing me. And so, I wanted to live. I didn't want to just exist. I wanted to live. So that was so powerful, that statement you made, in letting go, you received.
Yeah.
And another key thing that she said that I think is powerful for people to hear and really hear, is that you worked on the relationship with yourself, because I think a lot of people miss that when they go into union. It's all about the relationship, it's the we, it's the us, but who are you before the relationship, and then who are you in it, that you feel so lost, once it's ended. And so I just really love that. So did you have a great sense of who you were and what your relationship was like with yourself before all of that happened, and before finding out that you essentially been living, your husband had been living a double life?
So I knew who I was.
Mhm.
However, my 17-year-old
Mhm.
self was in a lot of pain, and I didn't know that. And so
Mhm.
going through this was the biggest gift for me, because I look back now and I realize I was I was so powerful as that 17-year-old self, but I was also still so hurting, because there were many
Mhm.
things that didn't get looked at. It was my intimacy issues. It was my
Mhm.
self-worth. There was still a lot of self-love issue that I had, which I didn't look at any of that, because when your body is used for somebody else's gain, it is devastating. Anybody that has been
Yes.
through that, it is devastating. And I mean, my social worker, who was supposed to help me through it, all of a sudden was trying to take my baby. And so,
Mhm.
who am I going to trust? And so
Right.
I didn't look at any of that. And it's been a beautiful self exploration for me to now go back and heal those wounds from when I was 17. So, did I know who I
Mhm.
was? Absolutely. I knew who I was. But what I didn't know was
Mhm.
that there was still that layer that I hadn't looked at, that I hadn't brought
Right.
forth. And I'll tell you, when I wrote this book, I kept telling, I was like, you girl, that 17-year-old girl, because I actually had a
Right.
hit when I was 18 years old. And I remember where I was, where I had this like God-given hit that you
Mhm.
just keep going, Sarah, because someday you're going to write a book so people don't feel alone like you do right now. And
Right.
so when I wrote
Right.
this book, I asked my 17-year-old self, please come forward and speak. It's your turn. Like, your voice is
Mhm.
now heard. So I knew who
Right.
I was. I just had a lot of that girl within me that also had to get healed.
Right. And so what did that present itself like? What did that look like? You said you were in a lot of pain and you didn't realize it. So what did that look like? How did you?
Well, it's interesting. I in my marriage, and this is where I now go back and I'm like, wow. In my marriage, I was a little bit of a control person in terms of like making sure the house was clean. I mean, I would bake pies. I was like the entertainer. I was the, wanting to fix everything around me and make sure everything was perfect. Um, Not realizing that was actually me also wanting to not, and I didn't, it was an opportunity then for me not to have to look at the things within me. Right. So, or the intimacy issues that were then happening between my husband and I, because if I just fixed everything and
Mhm.
made everything good around the house, right, I didn't have to look at what was also an issue between the two of us. Now, I will
Mm.
tell you that when I did feel that there was an issue between the two of us, I would go to him and I would ask him, what's going on? Because like he was my best friend. I'd ask him straight up, like,
Right.
is something
Of course,
going on? Are you okay? When I felt like there was something that wasn't right with him.
Right.
And he would always come back to me and say, no, everything's great. You're crazy. He wouldn't say like, well, actually, yeah, he did say I was crazy. Yeah, I will tell you, like,
Right.
and I was made to feel like I was the crazy one. And so
Right.
I
Right.
didn't listen to my own intuition. I listened to him, which then further diminished my self-worth and my voice and my self-love. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot there that had to get looked at, that, you know, and when I did talk to him about it, I listened to him. I believed him over myself.
Right.
So I don't do that anymore. Now when my intuition hits, I'll tell you,
Thank
sister
goodness.
knows. Oh no, there's something here to get looked at. I mean, I literally, like,
I
I'll tell you, my intuition now is so spot on, and more power to it, because, and
Yeah.
actually, this is the other greatest gift from this, is that I now have developed this intuition that is so, so spot on and so deep and so right there. Like, I am so aligned, because all those years there was something there and I didn't listen. Now I know.
You're right. I think we do ourselves such a great disservice when we discount our intuition because of what, I don't know, it's power that we give that other person, but because of the love that we have for them and because of that connection, we're like, well, it makes you begin to second guess what you know that you feel. But then you're like, did I really feel that? And
Mhm.
so we do ourselves a great disservice. But I'm glad that you just you've embraced that, and now it's become so much more heightened because of all the things that you're doing, to give back and helping others tap into what they, because oftentimes we have blind spots within our life that we can't see, and it takes, someone else on the outside looking in to see. And so, for you to have journeyed that journey, and now you're using that as a pathway to help others, navigate those dark areas that they're in. I just really commend you for everything that you're doing. And even through all the pain and all of it, everything that you processed, you're such a radiant light and such a joy.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
I'm gaining so much just from listening, just from, chatting with you today. So what has, how has all of that affected, like, how you show up as a mother, and like, how do you parent your
Oh,
sons now, and
oh,
in your relationships as a friend?
let me tell you, I gotta tell you, my next book I want to write is about parenting when you are in trauma, because I
Mm,
pretty much went against what everybody told me to do. and and here's why, because this was one thing that I learned so much, was that we listen to ourselves. You are a
mhm.
mother, like, for me, like, I know I'm a really good mom. I mean, I
Yeah.
love my boys more than like life itself. Like, my boys, they're now 29, 19, and 14. And so they
Right.
were at a very crucial age when all of this hit. And
Hmm.
I was told by professionals, don't tell them everything, hold back, don't let them see you cry that much, don't get angry in front of them, all the things. And I was like, wait a second. So you want me to be dishonest to my kids when I've
Exactly.
had somebody be dishonest to me all these years? And that's not okay to me. And so,
Hmm.
age appropriate, I was very honest with my boys. It made me a better mom. I
Hmm.
will tell you, this experience has made me a better mom. And I have been able to open with them. Be very open in communication with them. Their dad relapsed, and and it was a bad relapse. And my kids were in the car with me when I had to call the police, and it was just really, really devastating. And I talk about it in the book, but my kids asked me straight up, is dad going to die? And I sat there and I thought, wow, I have to answer this. And I took a pause and I said, we're doing everything that we can so he doesn't. I don't know. And I want your
Hmm.
dad healthy. And so I told them straight up over and over, I've been lied to. It sucks. I am not going to lie to you. And if there's ever anything that you need an honest answer about, you can come to me and you can trust me, because I know what it's like to be on that other side. And I want you
Hmm.
guys to know that you have somebody in your life that will never, ever, ever turn their back on you and will always be straight up with you. Um,
Hmm.
I believe that when you're parenting, and this has been the hard part for me, because uh, I believe when you're parenting, you're not only parenting when your kids are around you, you're parenting them when you're parenting when they're not around you as well. So the decisions and choices that I make in my life when I'm not with my children also impact how I am as a mother. And so finding this out was really devastating, knowing that their dad was making these decisions and these choices when the kids weren't around that ultimately did impact them in an energetic, different kind of way, because you're not being a straight up parent when you're making these decisions that are not aligned with with how we are as parents. So that was really difficult for me. And I'm still there are times where I'm like, wow, I mean, my kids, and all I kept thinking about were my babies. That was it. My babies. You are always my babies. And I don't care how old you are. I mean, but I'll tell you, I think that my boys are better men, growing into better men, having experienced this. And I would never in a million years wish it upon anybody. It's taught them a lot, and they've told me that. I mean, even going through COVID, they said, well, I mean, we've already been through so much. And so, with the trauma of COVID, it's like, we're just going to work through it like this as a family. And so we did. And we found a lot of joy, even amongst the pain and the trauma that our family had been going through in COVID, because we had a lot of things happen to us during COVID. And so it's taught them a lot. They're amazing leaders now, and they're making life choices according to their values and who they are, and not what society is telling them to do, which is the other thing, which is great.
It sounds like,
it
sounds like you taught them to be very resilient, even in the midst of adversity. And so that's a thing that we all to do as parents. My daughter is 26, but she's still my baby. She's got babies of her own, but she's still my baby. So yeah, I just love, because I'm a proponent of not hiding anything, hence my tagline, if you hide it, you can't feel it. I just think silence breeds sickness, it breeds deception, and it's just so unhealthy. And so, so did you run into any obstacles in trying to kind of work through the effects of, of everything that not just your boys experience, but you experienced? Like any external, barriers, like family, friends? Did it change the dynamics of any relationships in your friendships or, in your social arena?
Yes. Do you like that? Oh, yeah, it absolutely did. I think that one of the things that, like I said, a lot of people thought that I should be more angry at him, and that I should hold more resentment. And that's, whatever, like, that's just one of those things that people's opinions and people's thoughts, and I don't listen to them as much as I do. Like, I listen to me. And I did also have people that talked about us behind our back, oh, those poor kids, oh, this, oh, that. How I handled it was, as soon as somebody told me that, so-and-so's talking about your situation, I would walk straight down there, I kid you not, and I would knock on their door and say, we need to talk, because it does not serve me. It does not serve the community. It does not serve you. It does not serve my children when you're going to have conversations with other people about what's happening behind my doors. And so I think that having those, conversations with love, always with love, never with judgment. I always had it with love, and I would always hug it out at the end, helped to take down the walls that otherwise would be created with other people. Now, my friendship shifted, of course, because the more that I then went into my business and my life business and doing the work that I do, there were a lot of people that also didn't understand. And so I would get judgments on that. Like, you're a 40-year-old mom now, all of a sudden doing this work, stepping into, at that age, I was 42 when I started stepping into the work that I'm doing. And so, I mean, there were judgments, and, who are you to be doing this? to write a book or to, yeah. And those were my obstacles. But, I think that when you've been through so much and you know who you are, it's like, there's another obstacle. I mean, I didn't let it hold me back.
Right, right. That's powerful. That's powerful. So, what do you think has been for you the key to your success? Because people talk about there being secrets, but there are no secrets. It's just there's keys. There's things that you did. There's things that you implemented. There's things. What are those things that have caused you to create success and sustain it?
There's two things. Well, actually, a few things. There's a few things. I constantly invest in myself. And so I do, I mean, even right now I do things that scare the living bejesus out of me, like literally.
Wow.
I mean, and they scare me. I joined this mastermind 2 years ago. And it was a huge investment. I've been in it for 2 years now with really powerful women across the country. And that was scary. And I remember I was like, I'm just this woman, just starting this business, or that's got this business. And I also knew that I needed to step into that next place in order to up level and go into, literally up leveling into not only just me in business, but me as a woman, because I was held back. I was pulled back for so many years and put into this place of, your voice doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. Who are you to do this? And I was like, I knew I had something to share with the world, and I had to believe so deeply in it and invest in both time, money, energy. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And it was scary. Let me tell you, it was scary. So I do things that scare me too, by the way, it's really important. And I do that every year. I do something that makes me a little bit scared. And the reason why is because I know then that I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and learning that much more about who I am. And self-care is so important. Self-care is so important.
I think that's important that you brought that out, that doing something that makes you afraid, because when you get comfortable, you get stagnant, you get sedentary. And so we were created, a dear friend of mine uses this phrase that I'm about to say very liberally. We were created to grow. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And you just embrace it. I just love the way that you've embraced life, embrace the good, the bad, and the ugly. And for somebody that's listening in, that's like, okay, you're doing all that, but how do I do that? How do I embrace, how do I move beyond this fear? Or how do I move beyond this unforgiveness? Or how do I move beyond and embrace this pain? Because, I don't know if I can get through it. What would you say to that person?
There's a section that I write about, and it's the being and the doing. Right? The being is the slowing down, and the doing is to put into action. And what I tell people is go outside. It's so simple. And if it's like going for a long walk and just allowing yourself to be present with what's happening within you. And then also the doing is the taking action. So if it is, putting into, facing somebody that's wronged you, and saying, or writing a letter to them and having the tough conversation. By being with yourself, you can then do the things that also scare you. That might be a little bit like, The other thing that's interesting is we a lot of times mistake excitement for fear. Did you know that we're only born with 2 fears in life? Did you know that? We're only born with 2 fears in life. Isn't that fascinating? We're born with the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises, and everything else are things that we've learned through society and through our life. And so a lot of times we mistake what is actual excitement. Like, ooh, that sounds great, Sarah, and that's really exciting to like, it would be really great to go and have that conversation, but really, where's the fear coming in? And so listen to your body, because your body speaks. And for me, I know where my fear comes from in my body when I'm afraid. And I also know when I'm excited. Like, I can feel that difference of, oh, okay, this excitement is actually what's going to also push me into that and guide me into that space of doing the things that I once was afraid of. And so there's a real flow there with it. Yeah. And so just allow yourself to be, and then also then putting that into action, and the doing the part. Because I've had to do that. I've had to confront a lot of people. And let me tell you, it scared me.
Why do we fear? Why is that such a fear? Why are we so fearful of confronting people? Do you think it's a fear of rejection, of losing their, I don't know. What is that fear?
For me, it was, there were people when I was going through my forgiveness process, and there was a list of people literally that I wrote down, like, I want to forgive these people. I'm ready to. And I drove 6 hours to this person's house. It was somebody that my husband had an affair with. And he was a friend of ours, a mutual friend. And I trusted this man, like I trusted him like a brother. And so I can still feel the sadness even as I talk about that, because we moved out here, and he took care of my kids. I trusted him, like, and so I wanted to confront him and have this conversation, and also say, like, I forgive you. I'm handing back the pain that you had, that you handed me, and I want to forgive you. And confronting him was difficult for me and very, very scary because of the judgment, the conversation that I knew he was going to bring back up again of, well, we thought that you knew, and just like all the things of then putting it back on me, which I had done enough of that myself. I didn't need to hear that again. And I also prepared myself for that, so that when that conversation came up, because I knew it would, that I could then speak my truth. And also it didn't matter if he was going to believe me or not, because I was literally speaking my truth. And the more times that you do it, the less afraid that you get. And so that's something that people also need to remember, that first step can be really hard and scary, but the more times that you do it, the more you're giving yourself permission to step into your power and do it more and more and more. Yes, I've had to do that many times. It's about taking back your power though, too, right? Like, it's important to take that power back.
I agree. And so something that you said when you were sharing earlier, because it's 2 questions. One, did you ever feel at any point, like, did you second guess yourself as a woman, because, not only did he have an affair, but he had an affair with another man. And then the second part of that question is, when you mentioned it, you said you were hurt and upset, but you also were I don't know if empathetic is the word, because you were thinking, like, this is my best friend, and for him to feel like that he could not share this with me, thinking that this is somebody that I've known all these years, and this is my best friend, and there's still something that he felt like he couldn't trust me enough to share. But, how did you navigate through that?
Yeah. So I'll start with the first one about me as a woman. It's funny you should say this, because I look back on my life, and I outwardly, I wore a lot of black. I drove a black car. Everything in my life, I was like, I wanted to embody that darkness in a different kind of way. Does that make sense? I never did my nails. I felt like the woman part of me, that I wanted to step into, wasn't allowed to, in a way. And I didn't realize that a lot of it was because I was also holding his secrets, and that he was doing this with men that then subconsciously was affecting me as a female. Now, I drive a white car today. I only wear color. I do my nails. Things have shifted, let me tell you. That's also why, and I was also questioned a lot. I was questioned about my femininity, and people would say to me, "Oh, were you the guy in the relationship?" I mean, let me tell you something, honey. I had people say some extremely hurtful things to me. We thought you knew, we thought you were in it for the money. We thought, like, there were so many things that people said. And
Right.
that's also why now today, and this is why people, I don't know if people know this or not, but I take red heels on my retreats, and I take not on my trips, like any trips that I go on.
That. Yes,
Yeah.
I saw.
And this is where it started. This is where it started, because my femininity and my womanhood was questioned so much. And so I had this idea. I was running one day on the green belt, and I thought, I want to take a pair of red heels and my red dress, and I'm going to go to the top of a summit, and I'm taking a picture, and I am reclaiming myself as a woman, because women can have very different parts to themselves. We can be powerful, loving, passionate. We can like embrace life. And so that's where it started. And I took one picture and I posted it on social media, and people were like, "Who are you?"
Right.
And that's the woman that's always been inside of me. That
I
I
was about
also,
to say, was that the moment that you really kind of embraced and celebrated, the woman within? Yeah.
yes. And so
Yeah.
now I take them everywhere. I carried them for 22 days on the JMT. I took these rad shots, like
Right.
everywhere on different peaks. Like, I am a woman, and I
Right.
am embodying that. And
Right.
so, and I'll tell you, I was ashamed of my body. There was because of what happened at 17,
Right.
people would say, "Oh, you have such great legs." And I'd be like, "Ugh." And now I'm like, wait
Right.
a second. I do have great legs. Like, this
There you
is
go.
my
Own it.
body,
Yeah.
embody that. Um,
Yeah.
and I love intimacy, and intimacy was not provided to me in the way that I craved it during my marriage. And so a lot of healing had to go around that.
And please expound on that, because I know a lot of people that confuse intimacy with sex.
Oh yeah. I mean, just
Yeah.
like holding my hand, just the bringing me a cup of coffee, putting me first. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, I mean, not that I need to be put first all the time, but this give and take, this playfulness that happens between a man and a woman in a marriage,
Right.
and my marriage, any marriage and any
Right.
partnership. And
Right.
I just was like, why was I rolling over and crying asleep so many nights instead of being hugged? Like, what was
Right.
going on? And I feel for him also, because this goes into the next question. Like, I can't imagine the pain that he was also in.
Mhm.
I don't condone it. I think what he did was horrible. I can't, I mean, just, it's so, I will never forget it, because
Mhm.
because quite frankly, like, in my definition of forgiveness as well, it's not condoning what happened. It's not forgetting what happened, but it's allowing myself to let go of the pain, but also be able to see from a different perspective where he was at that caused him to
Yeah.
do what he did. And
Right.
so that's that
That's good.
compassionate side that also comes out, where I
Mhm.
go, oh, wow, your journey is your journey. And I'm
Yeah.
so sorry also that you felt like you had to be in so much darkness to not be able to come out and talk to your best friend. We should
Mhm.
have stayed as best friends, not as lovers. And it's, and at the same time, I mean, I also have amazing children. Like, I have amazing children. I got to honor
Are you
them.
still best friends? Yeah.
With No, and I will not deal like that. I'm not best friends with him. I'm very
Okay.
honest. I will never not tell you the truth. Um,
Right.
we are, and that's the part that really stings. And I in my acknowledgments to him in the book, it stings, because I I look back on our time together, eating Rocky Rococo pizza on the plaza of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and those moments of us not having anything. And I value that time so much. And I love those memories. And I wish that I could go back there even for just like 1 hour and just sit with him at that time. Because it's also sad, because we're not there. We're not the best friends. And I hope someday that we can get there again. And I don't know. And that's that beauty of also surrendering to whatever it is,
Right.
and knowing
Right.
that he has a lot of trust to rebuild with me. And I'm not sure if it'll ever get there. I hope it can. I hope it can. It's not, it's also not something that I'm going to force. I don't force that.
Right.
And so, you know, are we friends? Yeah, we're friends and we're co-parents. And I have very strict boundaries, and he knows that. I mean, you know, forgiveness is something that I work on every single day. And if I'm having one of those days where I'm like, I mean, when I was on the trail, I literally messaged him through my Garmin and said, wow, the last 2 days have been really hard for me, because I'm really working through a lot of pain yet that was put on me from our marriage. And I'm feeling anger come up again. And I just want to let you know that. And I'm working on it. And so it's something that I work on every single day. Just because you get angry at the person doesn't dismantle all of the forgiveness that you've worked on in the past, by the way.
Exactly.
People seem to think that.
Powerful. That's powerful. I'm glad that you made note of that.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement. Forgiveness is a process that you do every day.
Every day. Every day. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're not going to ever again experience any anger or any grief or any sorrow, you know, or any of that. But it's just giving space for that and allowing for that. And I love that you're able to be at a point where you're able to have the conversation and be like, hey, I'm processing this. I just want you to know where I'm at. That's so profound.
He doesn't always respond back, but that's okay. Like, that's the other thing. I want people to understand. It's not about even them responding back. It's about you just making the statement of and saying, this is where I'm at. And it's okay for them to know that.
That's awesome. So what has been, because you've had so many, what has been one of your most defining moments in life thus far, up to this 47 years you've been on this earth?
Wow. Wow. That's a big question. Oh my goodness. That was a big question. I will tell you, I think one of the most defining moments, there were two. One was holding this, because I'm still processing this. I'm still processing holding this book, because, and I still don't even think I fully comprehend what has happened with this. And that's okay. I'm just sitting with it, just because I think back to that 17 and 18-year-old girl, and I honor her so much. I honor her so much. And so that's one. And then the second one is we're working on a documentary right now, also called Walk Through This. It's a story of starting over. And there were 10 women that filmed over Thanksgiving in 2019. And it happened to be exactly 6 years to the day that my life imploded, that I found out. And we got those reservations, God-given. Nobody gets reservations over the holidays down at the Grand Canyon. And they were literally the phone call when I called in and said, do you have any reservations? And they said, oh, they just released reservations for Thanksgiving. And I was like, wow, yes, please. And people don't get to just film documentaries down in the canyon. And then there was 10 women, and it was sharing stories. And that was such a defining moment for me of, look at where this is going. Look at where your pain has like blossomed into, and look at what it's growing into. And so that was a huge, just being down there was huge for me. That was huge, huge.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So for somebody that's listening in and they're like, you know, I understand that, you know, you found your healing, you found whatever, you know, on the top of a mountain, or in the Grand Canyon, or, you know, paddle boarding out into the ocean, but I can't do that. So what can I do, you know, to achieve that same sense of freedom?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, perhaps I should have used this as my defining moment, because it wasn't, I mean, this is completely different, and this leads into this. I was going for a run one day, and I was in a lot of pain. And I remember looking up and just praying and saying, could you give me a message from above that everything is going to be okay? And a little butterfly landed into my hand and sat there for 10 minutes. And I just sat there and watched it and played with it. And that was a huge defining moment for me, just knowing that I'm not alone. And so you don't have to, that's my point. This is why I'm bringing this up. You don't have to go climb a mountain or paddle out into the ocean or go into the Grand Canyon to know that you are not alone. And to simply step outside of ourselves and go plop our little booty back down into nature on the grass, up against a tree, in the sand, go walk the beach, go just literally like go lay in a field. Okay. Go stop that car and go lay in a field. That's all you got to do. And just allow yourself to be present with Mother Nature, with God, with the universe, with spirit, with whatever you believe in, and know that you are not alone. At the same time that somebody is looking at that moon, and the same time that you're looking at that moon, other people around the world are looking at that moon, right? So we forget that we are all connected, and we are connected. The most important thing also is through our differences, we find our similarities. And by you opening up and having the tough conversations with people, you start to realize how your differences are not, that you actually have so many similarities with other people, regardless of who you are.
Yeah, I believe we're more similar than we are different than we give ourselves credit for. I really believe that. And, two of my favorite places in the world is either the mountains or the beach, because I just love water, and I grew a love for climbing and rappelling and rock climbing and all of that. Back in 2013, my first expedition in Peru, climbing the Andes Mountain. And since then, I don't feel truly, I'm not going to say at peace, but I don't feel truly connected 100% to myself until I'm in nature. That's just, yeah. So I love it. So I know we're getting close to time, but I just wanted you to share with our listening audience, because you've shared so much manna today. Just as a recap, some of the things that really resonated with me is allowing yourself to tap into within. Through our differences, we find our similarities, and letting go, you receive. There is so much manna that you've shared today. So I hope that those that are listening in are taking it in and writing it down and making note and letting it resonate. But we just have to learn to be more present and aware and embrace who we were created to be. And the bottom underlying foundation of anything at all is love. And that's what I love about it, because you just radiate that, you just emit that. And it's such a joy to be around. So for those listening in, what would you say to them, Sarah? Like, what is a takeaway that they can take away from this? And what is a call of action that you're charging them to do today, starting today?
So I will tell you, I'm gonna share with you same thing that happened yesterday on an interview. And we were talking about receiving, and how for so many of us, it can be difficult for us to receive. And what I want you to do is to take 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes. There are 24 hours in a day. Take 5 minutes. Go outside, sit down, even if it's on your deck. If you can't go outside, open the door, open the window, allow the breeze to come in, and literally just close your eyes. Feel the breeze, feel the air, listen to the surrounding noise that's happening. Put your hands over your heart. It's so simple. Feel your heartbeat. I always say that heart was yours. It's yours for a reason. It's not mine. I have mine. You have yours. Just feel the heartbeat of who you are. This is home. This is where everything comes back to. And allow yourself to receive the presence of you. That's it. Allow yourself to receive your love. Allow yourself to receive your worthiness. Allow yourself to receive the wonderful accolades that you got that day. If it was somebody letting you go first at the intersection, the wonderful kindness that happens every day that we sometimes dismiss. Just allow yourself to receive it. That's it. It's so simple. It's so simple.
Yes.
Right?
I love it.
It's so simple.
I love it. I love it. So that is your takeaway and that is your call to action. I don't know about you, but I've certainly been inspired, empowered, uplifted on this day by just sharing some space with Sara, hailing all the way right now from California. I want to thank you so much for sharing and pouring out your story. And it's a story of power, you know, from pain to power, from tragedy to triumph, from victim to victor, you know. And for those that want to know how to get in contact with you, Sara, how can they reach out to you aside from, you know, your website that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen? How can
Thank you for doing that.
like if they want to go, you know, maybe if they want to book a trip to the Grand Canyon, or they want to purchase your book, or they just want to connect with you.
Yeah. So if I'm on a trail and you see me, first of all, stop and say hi.
Right.
That's number one. I'm the one carrying the red heels. And you can find me through Instagram at Sara Schulting-Kranz. You can find me on Facebook the same way. My Facebook business is Live Boldly with Sara Schulting-Kranz. Connect through there. You can DM me, send me an email, sarah@sarahschultingkranz.com. And you can purchase the book through my website. Also, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, like all fine booksellers, right? All bookstores. And yeah, reach out. We have retreats. I'm not sure when this is going to go live, but we have retreats this Christmas, believe it or not, which is like that's going to be amazing. January, which is starting to fill already as well. April, June, and October in the Grand Canyon. We do so much fun stuff. Oh, so much fun stuff. It's so much fun. Yeah.
We're actually live and streaming now. So
we're streaming right now. There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
See?
And so,
that's how much
I don't know if you know. Like, so Leanne Gerstenhorn
of course.
Yeah, she made a comment and she said, layers, the metaphor and the deep layers you've walked through on your journey, walk through this. Can't wait to read it. So I just wanted to be sure that I shared that with you.
That's so sweet. Hi, Leanne. Yes. This is how much I'm like, we're live right now. I mean, this is like, welcome to my life. I'm just it's just me.
Evolving. We're ever evolving.
We're ever evolving. I mean, literally, I'm just like technology. I just start talking.
Right. Well, I want to thank you again so much.
I do want to mention also, if you want to watch some of the film, some of the film, it's amazing. It's on walkthroughthis.com. It is, we're hoping for it to release in the fall of 2021. So it's so good. There's some great stuff coming out of that. So, yes.
Okay. So make sure you take note of that. Take down our website so you can find out how to stay connected. Go to walkthroughthis.com to get a preview of the documentary that's upcoming, and connect with Sara. This is a woman that you need to know, especially if you're attempting to grow and walk through forgiveness. And so walk through this with Sara. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you again, Sara, for joining us.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for listening in to another episode of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. We will see you back here this evening for another episode of Michelle Speaks. And Sara, thank you again. Until then, guys, take care, be well, and God bless.
Mwah. Love you, girl. Thank you so much.